Hi, my name is Kevin Tierney. I am the publisher of MoreThanTheCurve.com. I'm here today with Mike Makoid, who is running for mayor of the borough of Conshohocken. So, Mike, why don't you just give us a bit of your background?
Sure. First off, Kevin, I appreciate you taking the time to have me on today. It's great to be with you. I read More Than the Curve. It's actually, I start my day every day. I'm not going to kiss up, but given that the Times Herald and the other local publications really don't spend much time out here these days, I think you do a great job. But really, I appreciate you having me. So I guess about me, for those who don't know, my name's Mike Makoid. I'm running for mayor of the borough of Conshohocken. My story is this. I live on the 100 block of West 9th Avenue in a 116-year-old house that my wife and I purchased about 12 years ago now, believe it or not. We're parents to two sets of twins, that is 4 children. 2 boys, David and Anthony, they're 12, and a boy and a girl, Vincent and Noel, they're 10. So ran in my wife's family, hadn't happened in 80 years, happened to us. So if you do the math, as I've told some other folks, we did have 4 kids in diapers at once for about a 7 to 8 month period. So I can deal with some pretty messy situations. So politics isn't that much of a departure if you think about it. But anyway, live here in the West End, Upper West Side of Conshohocken. I'm running for mayor and really just excited to take on the opportunity to try to do some good.
The first time I came across your name was when Covanta was having a series of malfunctions. For those of you who are aware, there's just outside the borough of Conshohocken, something that the borough of Conshohocken does use for its trash. There's a plant that burns trash and it turns it into energy through the process of steam, and that's where our trash goes. So I was curious, can you kind of give us how you got involved in that and what your thoughts were?
Sure, absolutely. I guess it'll start out very early on. I grew up in Plymouth Township on Jefferson Street, right next to JFK Park, for those who are familiar. Actually, my family moved there in 1986 when I was 10 years old. And oops, I just gave away my age, but that's okay. We lived there, and for those who have been in the area for a while, you may remember that when that trash to steam plant was first proposed back in the late 80s and early 90s, there was a lot of concern from residents. It actually came online in 92. I remember it very clearly as a kid. My father went to some of the meetings that Plymouth Township had, basically to see what was going on here. So how I became aware, but I always had a wondering about it. It was always there, never really gave it much thought until one day in June of 2019. I was working here in my home office at my house, had all the windows open. It was a beautiful day. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, started coughing. There was this acrid, horrible smell that came in through the windows, and it was enough to make my eyes tear. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if the house down the street was on fire, what the story was there. Turns out that the facility, Covanta, they had a problem. The facility lost all of its power, and as a result, you had something called fugitive emissions. That is, I won't go into the complete details of how the incineration process works. I refer to it as incinerator instead of trash to steam because it's really not a lot of steam that comes out of there, more smoke. But they had an issue. The facility lost power completely. They had emissions that came out. And when they tried to restart things, they botched their sequence. And as a result, you had a noxious cloud that came over Conshohocken. And it hit our house, went all the way over. The kids on the playground at Colonial Elementary even smelled it. And it was enough that it got me wondering and doing research about what's going into the air from this place. And that one thing led to another. There were additional issues that happened with the facility. And it led me to, some of the people may know me as the person that actually went before Borough Council on many occasions and tried to get greater visibility into the process there and call greater attention to some of the problems that it's had. So I will admit they have been on better behavior. I know they've sunk countless millions into the place in capital and in upgrades, but nevertheless, I view it as a ticking time bomb, given that it was supposed to have a 30-year service life expectancy. You do the math, came online in 1992. We're coming up on that right now, and they're actually due for their renewal of what's called a Title V permit next year, basically the license to operate and do what they do. So I think there is going to need to be more discussion in the community relating to that facility, especially, as I said, as it's coming up on the end of its projected service life.
Well, the one issue is that the only other option that's been talked about, at least for the borough's trash and West Conshocken's trash and Plymouth's trash, is landfilling. Yep. And people who are concerned about the environment, advocates, aren't necessarily against landfilling. They just want a lot of composting and, better recycling to take part in conjunction with that. And White Marsh actually moved to landfilling. They stopped using Covanta, and they raised a fee that they use for trash, and they've been doing that about a year and a half now, I think. Do you think that's something that's viable for the borough, or you think that a more, I guess, efficient trash to steam process is the future?
I don't think there is an efficient trash to steam process, at least with the facility over here as it's constructed right now. And when you get down to it, you see how our population, how the borough, how the surrounding communities have changed. When you think back to the mid to late 80s when this was first proposed, Conshohocken was a much different place. You still had, a lot of industrial activity happening there, a brownfield location. Yeah, maybe it's fine. But given the population density, given what we have right now, it's an inappropriate place for that facility to be located. I don't have all the answers as somebody who's running for the mayor of the borough of Conshohocken. I do know that landfilling is a viable alternative. There are alternatives. We've been doing that forever. There's also greater opportunities with reduced consumption and recycling there. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I do know that the facility as it is right now, approaching the end of its projected service life, knowing some of the dangers, it's currently the highest source of industrial pollution in all of Montgomery County. It's in our backyard right now. I don't like it, and I view it as a continued threat to our community here. And I worry about incidents of asthma in our children and exactly what it's doing to the air that we breathe. So yeah, I am a Republican that actually cares about the air that we breathe, which might strike people as a bit odd, but nevertheless.
What do you what is your platform? Like, what are your 3 or 4 big topics that you want to make sure people understand about what you're for and advocate for if you're elected?
My biggest one, Kevin, it's public safety. I'm a dad of 2 sets of twins, and my kids all stand on the bus stop in the morning. And given that I work from home now, actually, I'm a director of wireless product management with a Fortune 50 company that's based in Philadelphia. But like many other office dwellers, I'm in my home office right now. And it's nice because it does give me the opportunity to actually stand next to my younger kids when they're on the bus stop in the morning. And it's concerning because I see the same vehicles. I can actually probably call out the first 3 or 4 letters of the license plate and tell you the make and model that go by and blow stop signs or do Mach 1 heading up West 9th Avenue trying to hit the light before they make the left-hand turn onto Fayette. Public safety. I'll preface this. I love our borough police department. They are a thin blue line. They do a great job. Honest to God, I couldn't imagine being a police officer in the environment that they need to work today. But I'd like to see a greater focus on traffic and specifically traffic enforcement. And it goes into something that I've mentioned on my site where, my campaign site on Facebook. The borough of Conshohocken back in March of 2019, and you can look this up in the minutes for borough council meeting, put out an RFP, that's a request for a proposal, for a third-party firm to do a study on our police department. That is to see if we were dimensioned appropriately given the size and the population density of our borough. In November of 2019, a contract was awarded to that third party, Matrix Consulting, for about $33,000, I think $33,400 or $33,600. I forget the exact amount, but $33K. A report was generated, but it was never released to the public. So when I decided to run for mayor, reasonably intelligent, I know that the mayor does have responsibility for public safety and for the police department in our borough. I started looking and just seeing, references to what was going on in the borough council minutes. I found this. I put through a right to know request for that report, and I was denied, basically saying that the reason being that it was a deliberative report for internal consumption of our borough council and elected local leadership. Now, as a taxpayer, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not asking for a map of where our patrol officers are going to be during the course of a given period of time. Obviously, that'd be idiotic. You're opening up the keys to the kingdom there. But I wanted to know, do we have enough officers? And this was even brought into brighter spotlight with the incident that we had down at West 7th and Maple a couple of weeks ago, the shooting out in front of one of our establishments. And that's only 2 blocks from my kid's bus stop. And you might say, okay, well, Mike, that shooting took place at 1:15 in the morning. Your kids aren't on the bus stop at that time. It better not be. But you still have discharge of a weapon in a residential area where only one of the rounds hit the victim at the time. And I'd like to know, okay, our patrol officers, if they were tied up attending to that, who was watching the rest of the borough? Suppose we had domestic disturbance someplace else. So really not to go, too far down the rabbit hole in this one, but public safety, just taking a greater, a greater interest than I've seen from some of our elected officials into the public safety aspect, not just to be assured by our elected officials, oh no, you're safe, yeah, don't worry, you're fine. I'd actually like to see what a third party says about that. So that'd probably be the first thing. Second reason for my wanting to run for mayor, and we've talked before about the fact that the mayor in our form of municipal governance does not have a great deal of power. That is, most of the power rests with borough council. The mayor does have a very powerful platform, though, for communication and advocacy. If you think about it, the mayor has got a dedicated spot in the borough council meetings every week, the mayor's corner, where the mayor can talk about what's happened over the course of the past week, maybe show some selfies in front of a restaurant or what he or she's been up to lately. I plan on doing something different with that. I'm a Republican. 6 of 7 on our borough council are Democrat. My opponent is a Democrat. I'm coming into this with not owing anything to anybody. Basically, if you look, I'm doing this on a shoestring. I've got signs around town. One's right here behind me, but I've got no pens. I've got no door knockers. I've got nothing that I can hand to you. I don't owe anybody anything. And it's actually kind of liberating if you think about it, because I can ask any question that I'd want. Not to say that I'm going to go bull in a china shop or start banging on the desk when deliberations or when a vote is about to happen, but it's likely that as a homeowner, a dad, husband, somebody that's got roots in the borough here, I'm probably going to be able to ask some of the questions when things are being considered, say like with regard to the sewer plant, jump up and say, what are we doing here? Is this really in the interest of our residents? And it's a good chance that if you've been around here for a while, I'm probably going to ask the question you might have on the tip of your tongue or at the front of your head and say, yeah, that's what I would want to know. Good job, Mike. So that's basically the 2 big reasons that I'm looking at right now.
Regarding public safety and traffic, especially, every time there's that one road is brought up, once every, year. A couple years ago it was 6th Avenue, West 6th. People go, I want speed bumps on my street to slow down traffic. And thus far, it hasn't happened. They did buy some temporary ones that didn't go over. They were noisy and people complained about that. But there hasn't been any speed bumps put in anywhere. Now, West Conchi put in 2 speed bumps on Moorhead within the last 3 years. And I was driving around the main line, or maybe it was Upper Marion a few weeks ago. There were speed bumps everywhere. And any private community has speed bumps going through. I was going through Bluebell Country Club recently, and there's speed bumps the whole way through. So they say arguments like, it's going to damage the fire trucks and slow down ambulance response, which I understand. But again, there's speed bumps everywhere, except for Conshohocken. How do you feel about speed bumps?
Well, I'll tell you, not just limiting the conversation to my answer to speed bumps. I'll tell you how I feel about speed. Okay. Again, on my block, I've got on my block, the 100 block of West 9th Avenue. I'll put it out there where I'm at. We have, I think by my count, including my 4 children, 18 kids under age 16 here. I have to draw the line 16, before they start driving. So when I see, especially somebody racing up my street, trying to hit the light at the end of 9th and Fayette to make the left-hand turn before they wait, blowing through the stop sign, while my daughter is roller skating on the sidewalk in front of me or playing with the other children that are around here. Speed, I'd like nothing better than to have, the stereotypical get out and shake my fist and start yelling. So I'm not completely gray yet, but yeah, I've done it. So old man shakes fist. But I don't know if speed bumps are the solution. If elected mayor, it's certainly something that I would explore. Really, it'd be anything to try and curtail some of the speed and some of the reckless in driving that I'm seeing taking place. It seems people are in a rush now more than ever, rush back to get wherever they want to go. So really, something I've mentioned before, I think that would also serve to improve our situation a bit is that of presence. I threw this out there a couple of times, and people, when I've been around the community as I'm running here, they shake their head, and it seems to make sense. What if? I mean, we've got enough municipal vehicles here. We've got enough police vehicles. Let's say you park a cruiser that's not being used catty corner or right across the street from Borough Hall in front of Eisenberg's. Have it sitting nose out just a bit on Fayette Street. And it could very well be that on Monday or Wednesday, you may have an officer in there, or you may not. But you think about it, during the course of the morning and afternoon rush, it's highly likely that the same people are going past that same location. And all it takes is presence, or at least to know that, you know what, I better knock it back a little bit. I'm not going to go blowing through here because By the time I get up on top of that intersection and I see whether or not there is one of our officers in that cruiser, he could have me dead to rights and I'm getting a ticket. So I think the idea of having presence or looking at just different ways of considering things, I mean, that's nothing novel. It's done in towns all across the country, but just things like that. And also exploring, if speed bumps are an option, given some of the thoroughfares that we've got here. So,
the municipal police aren't allowed to use radar.
Yep.
And
actually, hold on. Some came out about that last year. That's actually on the table in Pennsylvania right now. I think it's, I don't know where it stands, but that is something that's being considered, changing that.
It comes up every few years. There's another push for it or a fight against it, however you look at it. Do you think that's a viable thing that you would advocate for?
Why not on Fayette Street? Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's actually a study you can't find. I think I published it. That the police did, and there wasn't. Their study found that there wasn't actually a speeding problem in Conshohocken.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on the parameters of that study and what constitutes a problem. I mean, what did they define as excessive speed, given, the speed limit out there is 25. Did they say below 35? Anything, what was it?
I forget the specifics, but there is an issue with, they're not, if it's 25, you're going 30 and they figure that out. Yeah. They're not allowed to even pull you over, really. Like it's not like
because at that point you're within the margin of error of VASCAR or whatever is being used at that point, right? Mm-hmm.
So like it takes significant speed to then recognize you as being, when they're eyeballing speeding, So
even here, you look at it this way, though, Kevin. If you think about it, even if you're not getting people, it goes back to my earlier proposition here, and that is one of presence. If you've got one of our patrolmen, and again, this goes back to earlier, are we dimensioned? Do we have the personnel in order to be able to do this? Again, it all kind of sends the report, see what it says there. But if you've got presence, if you've got a patrolman that's doing that, regardless of whether it's speeding, it could also be, I'm not going to do an improper lane change because there's probably somebody in Conshohocken that may get me for it. Or I'm going to be a lot more careful as I'm rolling up on a crosswalk. Whereas I might try and blow by somebody who's just stepping off the curb if I know that there's greater presence. Not to say we may make Conshohocken known as a speed trap heaven or a place where you get a ticket instead of a place to enjoy a meal, or whatever. It's still something that comes back to presence and just having that presence out there.
Well, I noticed on my own personal experience with getting a speeding ticket. I got a speeding ticket.
I hope you don't get a lot of them. That's not a good thing.
No.
I'm not giving interviews to scofflaws here.
But I got one on Old Arch in East Norriton.
I got one there once. Yeah.
And
let me guess. It was after Belvoir Road, right after you clear the stop sign as you're heading past the tech school.
That's not down past there. Yeah. So, but on the part where Corporal Lee's is where I got it.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So they park on the side streets, and the side streets are deep and wooded, and so you can't see them coming. And I find myself, as soon as I get on that street, I slow down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know they're there often. They're on a schedule where they sit in those streets.
So you've pretty much made my point for me just with that. Okay. All it takes is to learn that lesson once and you realize I'm not going to make that, not going to make that mistake again. So.
Definitely. The mayor historically, at least since I've been around, has run some different events in the town, and there was never really it's not on paper. It's not something that's the mayor's responsibility, but historically the mayor has done it. The car show, with some help from other community members, obviously.
Right.
The Santa thing at Marywood Park now, and there was some confusion when when it switched last time, who actually controlled these events? Was it a private event that the borough was supporting, or was it a borough event that the community was supporting? I'm not even sure how it would even transfer this time, because the current mayor set up an organization to run these events called Destination Conshohocken, at least for the art show and car show. I don't think for the Christmas tree lighting. That's Ambucks, I believe. But those kind of events, are those something you look forward to taking over, or that's not something that's not your interest? Focus on other things?
Oh, no. Let me. First off, my beautiful wife Danielle. She is an art teacher. Okay, and it's we complement each other well. First off, I'm a Republican, and my wife is a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat. So that may come as a surprise, especially to people that may not know us. To people that know us, they know that hey, that's simply how it is. Danielle is completely artistic. She's very free. She loves events, loves social. Whereas I'm very much more methodical with the telecom engineering, mindset, logical approach to things. But I can tell you that with regard to the car show, with regard to the Christmas tree lighting, with two sets of twins that were known in this place their entire life, families love, absolutely love. I mean, that's one of the draws of living in Conshohocken, to be able to know when they're going to close Fayette, or to be able at the old Leland Mansion at the old Borough Hall to know that Santa is going to go up the ladder and the kids can be there, and you get the hot chocolate, and you get the pretzels, and it's great because you see everybody else. The kids see all their friends from school. You get to see all the other parents. That's what makes this town. I mean, at least for somebody like me. I was given a little bit more personally about me. I worked for another telecommunications company, AT&T, for 24 years. In February of last year, I was given an ultimatum. Mike, relocate to our headquarters in Dallas, Texas, or consider leaving. I chose the latter option. I chose to stay in Punchy, in large part, because much of what I value in life is, you still there?
I'm still there.
Freezing up on me. You still there, Kevin?
You're freezing up on me a little. I can hear you.
Cool. Okay, cool. All right. Well, want to make sure I know where you may have lost me, but it's basically so much with regard to community, with regard to family, with regard to just being in a place where you want to be. Places like this aren't common throughout the United States. I mean, I really can't see myself living in a sterile suburban enclave where you need to drive everywhere. Whereas I can walk outside my door, and at any point and multiple times during the year, there's something going wrong right outside my corner. I mean, my son Vincent participated in the soapbox derby this year. It was great. Other people are worrying about logistics of getting their car up to Fayette Street. Yeah, I just wheeled mine right on up there, and we were ready to go. So I mean, I certainly have an interest in that, as does my wife and the rest of our family. So I think it's an intriguing part of the position.
Did you happen to read the thing about the apartments that we posted today on More Than the Curve?
Nah, I was really, really busy. I told you I read you in the morning, not in the afternoon. I got work. Sorry.
So the apartments at 400, the approved apartments, not built, at 400 West Elm, basically announced that they were going to start breaking ground. They got their first round of financing and are moving forward. What do you think the town needs to do to absorb what will be all the new residents, all the new corporate residents, over the next decade? There's going to be possibly, 1,500, 2,500 new people in town who live in town, and then a few thousand, working. Yeah.
It's a challenge. I'll tell you, it's something I've given thought through to. Again, it's through the prism of public safety, primarily. The reason that I gave you, one of the reasons running for mayor. And it goes again to our police department, our public services, our fire department, are we dimensioned as we should be in order to support the greater population density, along with what we've got with businesses, corporations moving in with the large buildings? So, yeah, I think it's a big issue. It's obviously something that can't be addressed just by somebody who's running for mayor or the person who's elected as mayor. But I think staying within a certain set of lanes, within the prism, as I said, of looking at it from a perspective of public safety, as well as speaking and being an advocate for our residents who are here right now to ensure that their needs are addressed, okay, with new people coming in. When you talk about traffic, when you talk about things that you can do to calm traffic patterns or enforce traffic laws. So I think there's probably a lot of questions there. Again, probably not the sole area of responsibility for the mayor, but I'd be looking forward to having a seat at the table to address them.
All right. Is there anything you think we didn't hit that you wanted to bring up?
Really, I think you've pretty much hit all of them. And really, it comes down to this. I got to a point in living in this town where up until very recently, I didn't share my political opinions. I just was happy to sit and listen mostly. People didn't know who I would vote for. Up until this year, I never put anybody's campaign sign on my lawn. Nobody. It's just something. This is a first. Now I've got like 7 or 8 of them out there. You'll know my house with the Halloween decorations and the signs. So, you know, but it's something that's new for me. I'm not a politician. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a homeowner. I'm somebody who grew up around the corner from Conshohocken, who spent a lot of time in Conshohocken even before we bought this house. My wife and I went on our first date at Coyote Crossing back in 2006. That's where we went after meeting. So, I mean, the place is near and dear to me, and I wasn't happy with the direction of things. And I thought, you know what? If not me, who? Who else? Might as well go and do it. And I'll leave it with this. I mean, if you're happy with what, and this is to the voters and to my friends and neighbors who talk to most of them, but if you're happy with the direction of things, with how they're going, with our elected leadership in the borough right now, don't vote for me. That's a bold statement, but it's true. If you want some change, if you want somebody that may speak without a filter in the borough council meetings, who will likely put the questions forth that you may already be thinking about and wish that somebody was there to articulate and put forward to those elected officials, I think I'd probably have a lot to offer.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Where can people find out about your campaign?
Well, you know what? Because I'm on a shoestring budget and I'm keeping it, I've got mouths to feed and things to do here. I'm on Facebook. So if you go to facebook.com/Mike4 Punchy, you'll find me.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh,
Kevin, thank you.
Just so everybody knows, we did ask the current mayor for an interview, and he has not responded to us. Just so we were trying to do both people, and unfortunately, we couldn't do that. Thank you
Kevin,
very much.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much. You have a great evening.
You too.